Hi everyone, this is Jadu from Property Framework, and today we're going to talk about the Brisbane property market. So, we are going to see what happened to Brisbane property prices from 2010 onwards, what's happening in the market right now, and what I expect to would happen in the next couple of years. So, the reason why I'm going back the last 10 years is because there are some really key insights that we can get from how this market behaved. So, let's get into this. Let's start off with looking at the population growth in Brisbane over the last 10 years. So, from this chart, what you can see is that population growth in Brisbane has been healthy since 2008. It's been fluctuating between that 1.5 and 2% mark, which is a really healthy population growth. You can see the contribution coming from overseas migration, the dark purple, interstate migration, the light blue, and the slightly dark blue is through the natural increase in population. So it has been healthy throughout the last 10 years. And this actually gives you the numerical value in the population growth. So between 2010 to 2019, population has been increasing by about 40 to 50,000 people every year. So that's pretty significant, which means that over those last 10 years, the population of Brisbane on average grew up about 500,000. So that's fairly good growth in the population. But if you look at prices, between 2010 and 2020, there was hardly any movement in property prices during the same time frame. Now, usually we tend to think that when there is high population growth, that comes with more demand for property and therefore more increase in property prices. But that clearly wasn't the case in Brisbane. Why was that so? Why didn't property prices increase despite the fact that there was very strong population growth in Brisbane? So to understand that, it's important to go into the supply side of things. What happened with the supply? Okay, let's look at Brisbane dwelling approvals. So dwelling approvals are what is in the pipeline. It shows what is already approved and is going to come on the market in the next couple of years. So if you look at that period between 2009 till 2000, almost till 2017, the building approvals in Brisbane were steadily increasing over time, which meant that there was more and more dwellings coming onto the market. And even though there was healthy population growth, the supply was just much larger than that. The supply was much larger than the population growth, and therefore there was always a surplus of property. Now, let's look at listing volumes, the number of properties that were listed for sale on the market. If you look at the period between 2010 to 2020, you can see that listings are fairly high and they have been increasing over time. So that means, again, surplus of property on the market. And and despite the fact that there was healthy population growth, these were the reasons why the property prices didn't move upwards, the surplus of stock on the market. And just one more chart here, which shows the rental listings. So the number of properties available for rent, even this was in surplus. Between 2012 to 2017, it was just steadily increasing over time. So you can see dwelling approvals very high, supply on the market, properties listed for sale is very high, rental properties available is very high. And therefore, the population growth did not have as much as an impact on property prices. And therefore, Brisbane property prices didn't really move. Now let's look at what's been happening with property prices in Brisbane since 2019. So this shows the growth cycle of Brisbane from 2019 till now. And what you can see is that prices have started picking up since August 2020, and then Brisbane went through a boom. So prices increased by 30 to 35% before they came back again. And the reason why there was a boom was that the surplus stock was eventually all absorbed and the amount of stock on the market was reducing. So with increasing demand, reducing stock, the boom happened in Brisbane. And then the Brisbane market actually went through a correction in late 2022. The prices dropped by about 10%. And now, since early 2023, the market has been going through a recovery phase again. So prices are now starting to pick up in Brisbane. So let's look into this further. So if you just look at the last quarter, Brisbane increased by almost 4% over the last quarter. And you can see it's very similar to other cities like Adelaide and Perth. And what's very common with all these three cities, Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth, is that the stock on market for all of them is very low. They're much lower than what they were about 5 years ago, and therefore the supply in these markets is very, very low. And that's the reason why these markets, all three of them, all these three capital cities, have been moving forward despite what's been happening with the interest rates and borrowing capacities and all that. So let's further look into Brisbane. Okay, so if you look at stock on market for Brisbane, right now it's 40% less than what it used to be during the last decade. During the last decade, you can see it's around that 30K mark, the stock on market, and right now it's dropped to about 17K on average. So low stock, low listings on market, and fairly decent demand, which means that prices are still moving upwards. And that's the reason why, despite all these interest rate rises and borrowing capacity reduction, the Brisbane market is still moving forward in 2023. Okay, to really understand how this market will move in the next few months, then it's important to look at new listings. So new listings will show for every month how many new properties are coming onto that market. So first, let's look at Sydney as just as a comparison. So the number of new listings which entered the Sydney market in September 2022 is 12,443, and in August 2023 that was 13,780, and in September, just 1 month after, it became 15,531. So 25% increase in the new listings for Sydney over the past year. In September 2022, only 12,443 came, and right now 15,531 properties have hit the market. So you can see that more stock is flooding the market when it comes to Sydney. But if you look at Brisbane, last year in September 2022, it was 7316, and September 23 is 7450. So the new listing hitting the market as compared to a year ago is only a 1.8 percentage higher. So you can see, as compared to cities like Sydney and Melbourne, Brisbane, the change in new listings is still very low, which means that supply coming on the market is low. And that means that price pressure would keep on moving forward. The prices will keep on increasing in Brisbane over the next few months. We won't see that momentum until we have interest rate drops and the serviceability buffers change, and then more people can afford to buy property. Until we have that happening, there won't be a massive increase in the prices, but over the next 1 year or 1.5 years, we would see slow growth in the Brisbane market, and that means that there is positive price growth here. Okay, so that's all from me for this Brisbane property market. It was an overview of what this market did over the last 10 years and what's happening right now, and I hope you got some information from it.